Welcome one, welcome all to Healing Spaces, the Black Gaze. I am so extremely excited to jump into some dynamic dialogue tonight with two individuals just kind of happen to know. I just kind of happen to know and esteem very highly. My name is Joshua Baker, and I serve as the TKO Youth Program Coordinator. And tonight I get to jump into dialogue with two of my youth ambassadors who are out here killing it, who are out here so bold and so brilliant. And before I allow them to introduce themselves, because I'm all about giving people their flowers while they're living, okay? I just need y'all to understand. I feel like we have a lot of conversations and we talk about it very proverbially when we talk about the new generation and what the next generation is going to do. And, we talk about the future being in good hands. But what excites me and what I love telling them is that I know the present is in good hands because the leaders they are, the compassionate human beings they are, the thinkers that they are, the creators that they are. It is creating such beautiful light and space in this world. So I'm corny, so I gotta give y'all virtual flowers. Y'all know I love y'all, and I'm so glad to be here. So I'll let y'all kind of do introductions, and then we'll jump right into conversation.
All right, cool. Well, I'll go first. Hey y'all, I am DaQuon Allen. I am pronoun indifferent and I am an 18-year-old creative and activist from Montgomery. And I'm also a peer navigator and youth ambassador for the one, the only Nights and Orchid Society.
Period.
Hey you guys, my name is Zuri. I go by she, her pronouns. I'm a video creator, youth ambassador, and peer navigator for TKO Society. And I'm super excited to be here today.
Yes, and I'm so excited to have y'all. So let's jump right into it. Y'all already know how we cut up in the meetups, and this is nothing different. The only difference is it's an audience, okay?
Right.
So for anybody who is not familiar with the construction of Healing Spaces, the Black Gaze, this title and this segment is actually inspired by none other than Mother Toni Morrison in her term of the white gaze, where she essentially warns us against creating and living lives that attempt to explain to white folks what Blackness is, right? So not catering to whiteness and centering it in our Black narratives and Black stories. And as we celebrate the excellence of Black History Month tonight, we're going to have a conversation that looks at the Black gaze. We are going to go within the community, and we're going to have some dinner conversation. Okay, so pull up a seat at the table as we get into some interesting tea. Okay, so the question is, there's one thing to be Black, but what is it to be Black and queer? And how does our Black queerness isolate us from our other Black folk in our community? Okay, and just like Mother Morrison warned us against that idea of centering whiteness, we are also going to be careful and that when we're explaining our narratives, that we're not centering Black cis het logic and Black cis het misunderstanding. What I'm telling you is my experience. So I'm not just going to talk about you and you doing your harm. I'm going to talk about what the implication is for me. I'm not going to just talk about the lack of your community for me. I'm going to say what that implication is on me. So I'm excited to get into it because the shade is quick and the reads is nasty, like the good Lord intended. So with that, we're gonna dive right in with the first question. What does your freedom mean to you? Because sometimes I think this conversation that we're often having around some of this intracommunal harm, sometimes you'll have like the Black straight, cis folk who will like hit you with the, I'm cool with you or whatever, but like, why I gotta see, Black queer characters everywhere? And I'm like, well, because we've always existed, because we're going to continue to exist and we're not going anywhere. And just because you're seeing us more visibly now doesn't mean that our creation or our existence has just, come on the scene. You're just seeing it now because we're able to advocate in different ways, and we're able to access platforms that we're not able to. So some of the questions are like, what's the purpose? What's the reason? So part of that answer to me very critically is, what does your freedom mean to you? So feel free, either one of you, to jump in.
Okay, I would specifically say for me, especially coming from a Black trans woman, my freedom for me is to get up every morning and take my two blockers. It's to, do my daily affirmations of positive femininity into my womanhood. It's to like look at myself every day and tell me that I deserve that crown. I always wanted it.
Yes.
That's what my freedom is to me, especially for who I am.
Mm. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And what I love in part in what you're saying too, how life-saving it is. I actually just hopped off a call around gender diversity with my department. And one of the things that was discussed is that idea of like, we talk a lot about body dysphoria, but we don't talk a lot about body euphoria, and like that there is that positive side. So like you're saying, when you're able to take those T blockers, when you're able to do your positive femininity affirmations, that's life-giving, right? It's not just about how queerness exists in areas of deficit, but like for you, your freedom is reclaiming your life, but it's also being able to know that I have a happier life because of the way I'm able to exist. Yes.
Exactly. Yes.
Well, for me, my freedom means to me literally everything. My freedom is literally my life, my freedom of expression, my freedom to be myself out in public. So with that being stated, with me personally, it would just, me just being who I am as a person. Because a lot of times with us being Black and queer, everything is already put up against us. We already have these different setbacks already. So just to be able to be myself without having to be scared of what other people think, or, not being afraid of what people think, and just, being able to be myself without having to worried about being harmed or any of that. That's literally my freedom.
That's powerful. And something you said, the power of no limitation, is something that I extracted from that I think is very personal to my concept of my own freedom. Because like you said, what is it to walk out the door with like bright red hair? And maybe if I want to throw on my heels today, like what is it to walk out and to be able to say, this is me, and this should not distract you any more than anybody else you see, right? Because when everybody else like falls into heteronormative expectations and realities, the same way you can receive them and keep it pushing, you need to do the same thing with me. I don't need to have to ask myself, where am I going? Do I need to mute my existence? Do I need to mute my presence and how I show up? Do I need to dial it down? One thing that always sticks with me, many years ago, TC would talk about how I'm not going somewhere if I can't go whole. And that has stayed with me over the years. And if I can't go whole, I don't want to show up. If I have to consider what I can wear and how I can talk and the things I can talk about, if I don't have that safety, that's a problem. That's a problem. And what a lot of folk don't understand, especially as we have this conversation and taking it intracommunally within the Black community, you have to understand safety isn't just like a request. Safety for me is a non-negotiable. You know what I'm saying? When I talk about my freedom and when I talk about what I need, we don't get on these talks and speak as like the experts of our experience with this idea that you're listening and we just want you to feel warm inside, that we just want you to relate to us and feel bad. No, I am telling you that my material safety is what this means to me. When I'm doing talks, okay, when we on panels, when we're doing the research, we're not doing it just so you feel fuzzy inside. We're doing it because we care about community. We care about the folks that look like us, that love like us, that have attractions like us, that don't fit the norm and status quo like us, and that can't just go outside and hold their partner's hands without having fear. You see what I'm saying? So that freedom, that having that ability to not have a limitation, that's what the freedom looks like. But when you have community that is against you, and then when you have folks that aren't community against you, going back to your point, DaQuon, we have these intersecting identities. And now we got multiple multiple shots coming at us, and we're trying to duck them all and still live a happy life. Which I think leads me to my next question. What is community for you? And I love asking this question ever since, I had a conversation in a very similar setting like this. It was a TKO virtual show. And I believe it was TC again, because, the divine, I'm going to bring them up wherever I go for the rest of me. They brought up the question of what is community? And for me, I took a second to pause and I said, for me, community is about safety and it's about reciprocity. So if I don't feel safe with you, sorry, you're not community. Try again. If there is no reciprocity, you're not community. And that becomes like a really dicey conversation, right? Because Black queerness brings its own set of issues, but Blackness by itself brings its issues. And see, I can be out here fighting for Blackness when there are elements of Blackness not fighting for me. Now that's something. And you're still going to want me to show up to the table fighting for Blackness, with an unadulterated spirit. You're going to want my moxie and you're going to want my passion. You're going to want my morale. But then when we go a little more specific and I say, okay, yes, let's fight for Blackness. But then when I say, let's fight for Black queerness, y'all get quiet. But y'all community, but y'all quiet. So now I don't feel safe around you. Now, you're not giving reciprocity by simple definition, because I'm giving myself, I'm giving my body, I'm giving my blood and sweat over to you, and you can't return that. Are you community? All skin folk ain't kinfolk. Mm-hmm. So tossing that question to y'all, what is community? What is the definition? What are y'all parameters for community?
Well, when I think of community, I honestly think of family, really. Because with family, they accept you no matter your differences. They love you unconditionally, and they want to see you do good. And that's what community is supposed to be about. Yeah. Clearly, that's not it all the time. But that's personally, I like that's what community is supposed to be.
Yes.
Well, I would say specifically for me, most definitely, I do agree. It does have a lot to do with loved ones. I really see it that way. You're surrounding yourself with people who actually care about your mental health, your well-being. They're there every step of the way, even the most ugliest parts. Yes. That's community. It represents a whole new spectrum of different categories, examples, expressions, everything. Like the book goes on, and that's what community is to me.
I absolutely love it. Y'all are incredible. Y'all are brilliant. Okay, y'all philosophers over here. And something that I love, a point that I've extracted from what Zuri said that even makes me want to add it to my definition of community is intentionality. Because in the way that you listed out those things that are the ways that community shows up for you, community has to understand you don't accidentally show up. You don't by happenstance show up for me. As a Black, cis, straight person who has privilege and power in and of yourself within the hierarchy, when we start talking about breaking down that privilege and power, you don't just stumble into being community with me. When you got your boys and they joking about gay folk and queer folk and trans folk, and you sitting there quiet, that's your opportunity to be community. Don't wait till I'm in the room to feel like you can stumble into an opportunity to be there for me. Don't be there for me behind closed doors. Go 100% or nothing. And sometimes that's a controversial take, but I'm a firm believer in draw your line in the sand. Like when I came out, and that's another thing that Black straight folk don't understand. We can sense changes. Just because you're not calling us slurs or just because you're not throwing Bibles at us doesn't mean I haven't noticed that our dynamic has shifted. It doesn't mean that I don't understand that you're not showing up for me in a way that you used to. It doesn't mean that now you can't support my art no more because, my art, it was talking about heartbreak earlier, but it was gender neutral. I ain't have no pronouns. But now that the poems have he and him in them, y'all can't really support no more. Right? So it's those little things that have really lasting deleterious effects, which leads me to kind of the last question I want to throw in and kind of, get our opinion on is what does this harm within the community do to you? Because once again, the purpose of us being here is not to center the perpetrator of the crime, it's to center the implication and the aftermath and how we go into our life's journey carrying these things. So what does the harm do to you? How do you deal with it? You know, what does it do to you? How does it change you?
Okay, for me, because before my transition was very, very rough, especially when it came to the initial part of me initially coming out, it was nothing but judgment and depression. And, it's like a lot of people only looked at me in disgust. It wasn't how they viewed me was just so differently. It was,
Goodness, yeah.
it was like I wasn't seen, I wasn't heard. I just felt like a stranger in my own home, walking on eggshells, to explain it really. And, I would say that experience made me a little more tougher, but at the same time, it's like, it really took a toll, and it really affected my everyday life. Yeah. And that's the honest truth.
That's powerful, especially like that imagery of like walking on eggshells. Because once again, when we have these conversations, it's not just about shock value and like trying to elicit like your sentimentality. Like, it's not just about you having a warm feelings. It's about understanding that, even from like my personal experience, for example, I understood that disclosure around my sexuality was a very political decision. It wasn't just a Hallmark movie moment they try to make it out to be, where it's just like, I can't do this anymore. It's weighing on me. And then you come out and then like everybody just comes in droves and like, we've loved you the whole time and nothing has changed, because maybe there's some people's stories, but that's not all of the story. And so for me, coming out was a political decision. I had to understand, baby, if you ain't got your own money, you ain't got your own spot, if you ain't got your own way to self-support, you really, baby, it's dicey. It is a gamble. Like, queer disclosure is a gamble. You don't know what's gonna happen. You don't know what professional opportunities, what academic opportunities are gonna go away. You don't know what entrepreneurial opportunities are gonna go away, because people don't wanna vibe with you now. Because now we have these differences that are so massive that now support becomes a question. So it isn't, once again, going back to that concept of walking on eggshells, it ain't just about like, I just want y'all to like me. It's about when people in power have power, they can prevent people who don't have the power from doing what they need to do. So it's not just about feelings, baby. It's about logistics. Okay, I'm a businessman on this call, and Josh is gonna get what he need. Okay, William Tommy said, "I need mine to the dollar, baby." So like, for me, it was a very political decision, and what that harm looks like, was crazy. Like, even after coming out, like, I could feel the stress in my sleep sometimes. Like, I would literally wake up from my sleep because the anxiety was riddling on the inside. And I was like, damn, you really out here living your life. Like, you living the life you thought you would never live. Like, you were young, right? In a Christian household where you're hearing, from the pulpit when you're in church Sunday, God created Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. Like, you're having these negative, internalized, homophobic like messages that are being spewed at you. And so I remember being very young. I said, nope, I'm never coming out. I ain't believe in having no beard either. So I was like, I ain't gonna bring nobody else into this. I was just like, I'm gonna be alone for the rest of my life. I ain't finna lie to no woman because I already know what I want. And I'm not even finna play you. I'm not finna pull you into it, okay? So I said, if I have to just be alone, I might just do that. And everybody's gonna know what it means, right? Because my heart breaks for some of our elders who grew up in a different time and who don't have that privilege. And in the same way that I was preparing to become them, we know we ain't never seen you, we ain't never seen Uncle Bobby with a woman, and we know what that means, okay? And I was prepared to do that. And the older I got, and the more that I saw the beauty of like how many ways that you could exist and that you didn't have to deny your identity. And that because denying your identity, that didn't have to be like the end of the story, right? After nights and nights and nights of praying that God would take it away. And eventually I had to come to a conclusion. Like, either God don't got the power y'all say God got, God can't really be tripping on me like y'all say God tripping on me. So which one is it? And I choose to believe in an omnipotent God that can do whatever God wants to do. So if God ain't done a change, I don't know, maybe you need to reconsider your doctrine and your own ideology. But the problem ain't me no more, okay? So I had to make those gains, but like even in coming through that journey, the way that it still peaks up, the way that sometimes if I wear some more flamboyant earrings and I'm kind of like, oh my God, like, am I in the space to do that? Like, am I safe here? Like, is today? Like, I don't want to become a hashtag today, y'all. Like, it's heavy. And like black, straight, cis, het folk, like, don't necessarily understand the heaviness, right? It's a little more black and white to them. But for us, it's so expensive. So many wheels are turning. So yeah, not to monopolize too much of the time, but yeah. And I toss it over to you.
All right. So me personally, the harm led to mental distress. And honestly, I want to be transparent with y'all. So I want to tell y'all about a memory that I have. Well, you know, so I want to say I was maybe about 5 or 6, but I've always been me. I may have not had the definition to describe it or anything, but I've always been me, extra flamboyant, all that. But it was one day, I forgot what led to this, but pretty much I was just in the house with my cousins, and my cousins are like older than me. So at the time they was probably like teenagers, and me, I'm probably like in kindergarten or something like that. But either way, there was just like, if you were to ever be gay or anything like that, like we would like pretty much like harm you, like we'll beat you up. Like, and I'm just at that age, I'm like, I don't want to get beat up. Like I like my life. So for me, that made me think, okay, so in order to make them happy, I'm gonna cover up this part of myself. And with that led to mental distress, having me thinking like, okay, something is wrong with me. When in actuality, nothing is wrong with me. Something is wrong with y'all.
Exactly.
So that's what the harm did until I got to a point where it was just like, all right, I'm able to unlearn these doctrines and, be myself 100%, So yeah.
That's powerful. That's powerful. And my babies, I'm so glad that y'all are able to be here 100% unadulterated, being who you are, the beautiful, talented, divine beings that y'all are, because the world would truly be robbed if we had to give muted versions of any of us celestial beings on this call, okay? Because what y'all have to understand, and what everyone in this world has to understand, is that I'm here on assignment. You're here on assignment. You're here on assignment. We are vessels for something greater. We are part of the great work that's going on in this world, okay? And there's a light that we bring. There's a power that we bring. There's a lens that we bring. And the people that we need to touch and we need to reach, we're not going to be able to do that with a muted version of ourselves. Josh got to show up 100%. Zuri got to show up 100%. DaQuon got to show up 100%. And we, just like light, attracting the moths, we're going to attract what needs to come our way. And especially as we talk about that concept of being healers, like we're gonna draw and we're gonna heal. And last but not least, as we kind of wrap things up, what is one thing that you would tell like community members, like one thing you would want them to know in proximity of how they can show up better and how we can be better for each other?
I would say personally, because just from experience, just make sure you, one, be gentle with yourself and also be gentle with others, because you never know who is going through what. You never know when it's just going to be that day for them, or, it's good to be considerate of others, because, sometimes it's so hard to see when you have so much going on in your own personal life.
Yes.
I do have a question. So as far as community leaders, you mean like the Black community?
Yeah, most definitely. Like specifically in the way that, of course, we've kind of been talking about how there's like this internal, but at the same time, external harm. Because internally, it's Black folk, we're all in the pot. But then even in the pot, almost like when you have a separation of layers, you know, you got the oil on the top and then you got things separated. There's also that separation even in the same pot. So yeah, for those who are cis het and at least have that type of power and privilege, what would you say to them about showing up better?
Honestly, I would just say be open-minded and know that everybody is different. Like, we're not going to fall under these certain ideologies that you have because
Absolutely.
everybody's not the same.
Mm,
So, with that being stated, if you're going to be pro-Black, be 100% pro-Black. Like, we're all in this together. So if you don't care about me and my identity, like,
you better talk
so with that
that.
being stated, just be open-minded.
You better talk that, cause you know me, city girl. If you don't care about my identity, you can't care about what I can do for you. You can't care about
Right.
my gifts and my talents because you know we also kind of see that in media too, right? Where there's a lot of criticism of Black queerness, but you don't care when your choir director gay, you don't care when your hairdresser is gay, like you don't care when queerness serves you and benefits you. So you'll take my body, you'll take my services, you'll take my talents, but you won't take me. Which leads me into the point that I guess I have like been very diligent about making sure, not just in this context, but wherever there's a marginalized group and there's a power group that has the opportunity to use their power and privilege for good. Just because something is not your problem does not mean it's not a problem. So to my Black folk listening, I love the hell out of y'all. Whether y'all love me back, I love the hell out of y'all. Now, that doesn't mean I can show up for y'all in unrestrained ways, because if you are directly active in securing my harm and my detriment, community, stranger danger. I have to draw that line. I have to draw the boundary. However, that's not going to stop me from loving you. I'm going to love the hell out of you. I promise you I will. But at the same time, I need you to go hard for me just like I'm going hard for you. I don't need you to pull up to the table and say, I'm Black and I got my issues and that's horrible. But I'm not Black and queer, so I can't talk about it. Because here's the thing, if we flip that mug, if we looked at white people with power who say they're allies to Blackness and Black folks, oh baby, ready to be up in arms if you had a white person come and tell you like, no, you know, I really understand your struggle and everything you're trying to go for, but I'm gonna be quiet on this issue. I don't really think I can stand up and stand out about this issue. Like, you know, I get it's your issue and I get it's very deep to you, but I think as a white person, I'm gonna draw my line right here. Baby, community would be up in arms. I mean, there have been people who have done that too, and we've seen it in real time where, you know, whether it was during the protests during the summers, right? Where all of a sudden your white friends that claim to be allies, they got quiet on the TL. You weren't hearing anything. They weren't challenging the systems. They weren't utilizing their power and privilege. So when we're having the same communication, and when we're having the same interaction with the Black folks that we love, who just also happen to be cis het, I need y'all to show up for me too. It needs to be a problem, and you honestly, you need to feel like it's your problem as well, because I love you and I love us and I love going after what we need. I love getting community what we need, and if I'm a part of the community, our identity affirmation, us getting the resources that we need, us getting the equity, and I'm a big believer in this, not just the quality. Don't give everybody the same thing, okay? If you banged me in the knee and then all of a sudden you tell me we both about to run a race, it's not the same. I'm gonna need a head start. I'm gonna need some extra provisionals, right? So understand that I and we need equity, not just equality. You need to understand that what we need to be given needs to be in proximity to what has been taken. So with that, I am so thankful for y'all. Y'all are beautiful. I love y'all to death and beyond. We're gonna wrap this call, but there is one thing I want everybody watching right now. I know y'all love seeing our beautiful faces. I know y'all love seeing us here as we think and philosophize. I know y'all can't get enough of it. Yes, give it to them. I know y'all. I know y'all can't take it, but y'all gonna take it because guess why? We're gonna be back, y'all. We're gonna be back, y'all. So please be on the lookout for our next segment. And I'm gonna end this one the way we end our meetups because affirmations are important. So I have a voice.
I have a voice.
It is powerful.
It is powerful.
I am powerful.
I am powerful.
All right, y'all. Everyone have a good night. Thank you for tuning in. And please come back again.